What is up, you heathens and demons, you sinners and saints, you blasphemous, beautiful people? Welcome back to A Raging Atheist. I'm your boy Nakatsuchi, and Ali's here. Hamable is here with us. If you would like to come in and share your story, if you have a eating disorder and feel like maybe your story might be important, then feel free to please come in. I'm gonna go ahead and throw it right over. Or real quick, I do have something to say because I was on Modern Day Debate earlier, and I feel like I did well in that debate and all, but I was disappointed in somebody in particular. Yeah, I'm gonna be reaching out to somebody. I was gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna talk about it, but I'm interested in a particular person's comments. So, Ali, what's up?
Hey, did you make sure to unmute OBS?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Hey, you told me to remind you, and sometimes you think you did and you didn't. So hey guys, I'm going to give a trigger warning quick for anybody here who might have an eating disorder that's still in the throes of it. We're going to be talking about some heavy stuff. We're going to be talking about things like binging, purging, anorexia, etc. So you don't have to share if you don't want to, and you don't have to stick around if it's going to be triggering, but we are going to be talking about eating disorders in depth. I've had an incredibly busy day. I did not have enough time to mentally prepare myself for the stream, so apologies for the accent still being around. I'm working on it. I wanted to start off the stream by going over the definitions of the most common eating disorders, those that we're all the most familiar with, and also a few sort of, I guess, like a few myths about them. For example, the vast majority of people with anorexia do lose a great deal of weight. However, not everybody who has eating disorders in general, particularly anorexia and bulimia, end up severely underweight. In fact, bulimia is actually more likely to lead to severe weight gain, and my bulimia is a big part of the reason why I've had to lose as much weight as I have over the course of my treatment. Which, full disclosure for those of you who aren't familiar, I am diagnosed bulimic. I have been diagnosed bulimic since I was a teenager. And I'm currently undergoing cognitive behavioral therapy treatment and being monitored while attempting to lose my excess weight because I hit 320 pounds at my top of weight, and I've lost just over 74 since then. And yeah, dieting with an eating disorder, it's fraught with a lot of challenges. And so we'll get into that a bit. But first, I wanted to go over the basic definitions of the various eating disorders. So the most commonly recognized is anorexia nervosa. Originally, bulimia nervosa was actually bulimic subtype of anorexia, but they've actually changed the conditions. Also, one of the requirements for diagnosis used to be being severely underweight. However, they now have atypical anorexia, atypical bulimia, where you can be overweight and still have it. Symptoms include restricted eating patterns, so difficulty with getting yourself to eat, or lists of safe foods. A lot of people with anorexia are quite obsessed with a particular diet plan. A lot of people will say pick extremely low fat eating plans, or like raw food vegan. Just because you follow one of those plans doesn't mean you're anorexic, but anorexics are more likely to pick them because of their restrictions. Intense obsessive fear of gaining weight, um, despite being underweight. There's also body dysmorphia, which is the belief that the body is much, much larger than it actually is. Or the converse version of body dysmorphia, which is believing that your body is smaller than it actually is, and then catching yourself in the mirror and realizing you're wrong, which is a thing that I deal with. Heavy influence of body weight or perceived body shape on self-esteem. Distorted body image, including denial of being seriously underweight, obsessive compulsive symptoms, generally thinking about food basically all the time, collecting recipes, hoarding food, etc. Like some people have a hard time eating in public or in front of other people. My sister-in-law actually has that problem. She literally cannot eat in front of people that she's concerned may judge her at all. Like when she goes out to eat, she'll pack her food up off to the side and just talk to the person and then eat it at home. So bulimia is another version of it. It usually develops in your teen years, much like mine did. So bulimia is similar to anorexia with the same sort of food obsessiveness, but it comes with it binging and purging. So purging can take several different forms. There's the vomiting type purging that most folks are familiar with. And there's also what's known as exercise purging, which is where you obsessively work out for hours and hours and hours. That's the type that I deal with. It's actually also the type that men are most likely to deal with. They'll eat large amounts of food and then they'll spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours in the gym trying to bulk themselves up. And that's actually a version of bulimia that a lot of men face. Now, keep in mind, I'm not I'm sort of reading a lot of this out of the DSM-5. I'm kind of, including bits and pieces of experience and discussions I've had. So I'm not an expert. This is just very overview definitions. Don't use them for diagnosis or anything. So, like, binge eating being the big thing that distinguishes anorexia and bulimia, oftentimes binges can happen to the point where you will stuff yourself effectively until you hurt. Often it happens in response to emotions, particularly anger, sadness, etc., kind of trying to numb it out. Other types of purging, going back to purging, include laxative abuse and diuretic abuse. So both of those are things that people frequently deal with when they've got bulimia. They talk about enemas as well, and fasting as forms of purging. I've actually done that where I've binged at the beginning of the day and then refused to eat for like a day or two afterwards to quote bring me back to normal. It's messed up. So binge eating disorder is bulimia without the purging. Effectively, they're effectively the same, but there's no purging behaviors quite frequently. They generally don't restrict calories at all. No vomiting, no excessive exercise, generally don't deal with diuretics or laxatives, etc. It's basically the binge eating subtype of anorexia or bulimia without the purging. Binge eating disorder often comes with a great deal of shame or guilt. There's often people with binge eating disorder will eat in secretive areas, like you'll go to a fast food restaurant and eat all of it in your car and get rid of the evidence, or hoard food in the bedroom and binge and binge and binge with that food because you don't want anyone to see you. So there's that sort of hidden component. People with bulimia often do it as well, but like it's more exaggerated in people with binge eating disorder. So there's also ARFID, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. So it's a diagnosis that only used to be for kids under 7. However, some people grow up and still end up having it. So like this isn't just like lower food intake. This is eating habits that sort of interfere with normal social functions. Like for example, the complete inability to eat entire food groups, or you have like a panic attack. I actually, one of my in-laws used to date someone who, because she was force-fed when she was very young, she could not eat any beans, legumes, peas, corn, anything that's got like starchy sort of texture, with the exception of like potatoes. She had such an extremely restricted diet that she basically could only eat processed foods, like things like chicken tenders and stuff like that, because she was force-fed, quote-unquote, healthy food by her grandmother when she was growing up. So she ended up developing an adult form of ARFID. So there's purging disorder, which is bulimia without the binging. And there's also OSFED, other specified feeding or eating disorder. Orthorexia is another disorder that can fall under OSFED. Orthorexia is sort of an obsession with eating a very specific sort of food. So, like, for example, if you've ever heard of eating clean, there's a specified list of food that you're allowed to eat when eating clean, and eating anything outside of that would cause violent, severe psychological distress. So orthorexia is a sort of a perfectionism. It's an obsession with eating perfectly. It's not its own classified disorder. It's sort of this obsession with healthy eating, whatever you end up defining healthy eating to be. It qualifies under OSFED, other specified or feeding or eating disorder. They're investigating to put it into the DSM-6, but it's not currently classified as such. So if somebody says they're orthorexic, they fall under OSFED. So yeah, those are your basic definitions. There's another eating disorder called pica, where people desire to eat things that are not food. So like, sometimes people end up really liking to eat glue, or like drywall in the case of my cat. That's a pica. Said ice, dirt, soil, chalk, paper, hair, etc. Now, this isn't just like chewing on these things. This is like actually eating them and having this sort of uncontrollable desire to do so. It can result in injury and other things. It's not nearly as common, and it actually can be a symptom of other things that are going on with your body. Like some people who develop certain issues can. There are certain like disabilities and certain disorders of the body that can actually cause picas as one of the symptoms. So that's another eating disorder, but it's not one of the ones that we're going to be talking about tonight, because we're talking mostly about the psychological disorders as opposed to sort of the ones that can be physiological. So yeah, that's your introduction. I'm going to be sort of saving my story until the end. But anybody who has an eating disorder or has a loved one with an eating disorder, you're welcome to come on and share. So, yeah, that brings us to our first guest, Hannibal. You said both you and your brother have eating disorders. You said your brother has ARFID, correct?
Yes, my brother has ARFID, as in I've seen it pretty much with him ever since he's like very little, as in, and he never grew out of it. As in, only a few things that really changed with him growing up, as in a few additions of meats, as in chicken, shrimp, but he still won't touch red meat. As in, even though he goes hunting, he won't eat venison. It's sort of strange that I'm the one who eats the venison, even though he's the one who shoots the deer. Just because of this. And then with me, and I've also noticed that he won't eat specific, as in he actually refuses to eat specific Taco Bells and has favorites because of how they proceed with the textures of cheese melting. So it almost implies sensory issues as well. It's not just, as in if it don't feel right, or it tastes wrong, he has a mental block that says, I won't eat this.
Interesting.
To a lesser extent, if something's overcooked with me, it seems to also happen, as in if it's too mushy. But
that's fair. That's more of like a sensory processing thing, isn't it? Because like I know that folks with ADHD, which you and I have talked about before, I actually have problems with certain food textures, but that's more of a like sensory overload thing for me. Like I get really sick feeling with, for example, I cook my oatmeal more like porridge, rather than being very, very soft the way a lot of people do. Like I cook it almost like, if you've ever had congee, I cook it almost like that, where it's a lot lumpier, because otherwise if it's too soft, I gag.
Yeah, and I also have similar feelings about oatmeal.
Yeah, I have issues with textures I can't eat certain types of textured foods.
Yeah, I've got other issues, but we'll talk about my stuff later. So would you?
And I've also noted with my brother, not just, but there's certain things it doesn't even seem to matter what texture you make, or how tender or what you make the red meat. He won't touch it. He just won't. And then,
hey Emmett, if you would like to come in and share your story, you're welcome to. There's no pressure whatsoever. If you decide that you don't want to do so, you don't have to. But I did DM you on Discord.
then with me, it gets even. The thing is that what started the binging was actually the oddity when I was on Ritalin, like really young, and then it would wear off. Suddenly, the impulse control was gone, and I was ravenous because it made the food taste like garbage. So it was like it's almost like I associated the binging with feelings of joy initially when I was younger. Then puberty struck, and then the binging became more frequent to where I went from 120 pounds to 240 pounds in the span of just 3 years. As in, I ballooned, even though I only grew 2 inches. Just because the dysphoria started to build. I was trying to stuff feelings. Once I started to stuff the feelings, then the guilt would strike every so often when I started to notice warning signs of diabetes, because my mom at the time had just got diagnosed. So I ended up with pain. So I panicked, and then had a few stressful incidents and entered into a major depressive episode, and then lost like 60 pounds in the span of, I think it was like, holy smokes, it was like 10 weeks.
That's not healthy at all.
Not at all. In fact, I had to be withdrawn for school for a whole year, and graduated at 19 because of the extreme weight of weight loss and the slow mental recovery. It's like so slow, as in because they were seeing such rapid weight loss and distress. It was like there was actually concerns that I wouldn't make it to Christmas at that rate.
Yeah, well, I wanted to back up to something you said before, that you said that you used to associate the binging sort of with joy. And that's actually very, very common for folks with eating disorders. Because think about, as, a species, even, I'm not even going to say as a culture, as a species, what do we do around celebrations?
We eat, and not just that. But
like
to me,
here in America, we have an entire holiday that's literally just devoted to eating. Like Thanksgiving is literally just the only thing that holiday actually is a whole bunch of people get together and they eat very specific types of food.
And given with my upbringing, Easter kind of served a similar purpose. It was just eating.
Yeah, the holidays have been a nightmare. This was like our first holiday season with my daughter's type 1 diabetes, and trying to figure out the carbs and the calories, and man, it's I'm glad it's over, and it's going to be a learning process going forward.
Yeah, there's also certain things where they initially were seeing certain signs with the ADHD, where it also became where the meds wore off at night. Suddenly, 2 pizzas gone. There's no shame or anything. There's just gone. As in, I'd be so voracious because of how the meds made me feel. There's no way, and how quickly I was eating. I'd eat until there's no way I could have chewed it even adequately to digest half of it. So it was like half of it would go undigested. It was like if I chewed it more completely, there's no doubt in my mind I would have been 400, 500 pounds. There's no doubt. And given that 6'2", that would have meant, for me, I would have been large enough to, as incomparable to sumo wrestlers. And pretty much every bit as agile as one with certain aspects of my hip mobility. As in, I'd be able to turn like one, but I'd also age as poorly as one. It's scary to think about how, if it weren't for certain things of the major depressive side, the guilt that would occasionally occur, where it just shut me down to where I'd enter severe fast because there's just no spark in me. It's like as if I wouldn't be surprised if, and it really only got under control, the binging, or at least my weight stabilized once I realized I was transgender. After that, I went down from 255 pounds down to 195 and have held relatively stable in between 195 to 210 ever since, what was it, 4 years ago. It's pretty much only been with me realizing why I was stuffing myself. And even then, it's still every bit of struggle where I actually have to count calories in between the good time because of my tendency with when I'm feeling good to binge. So I have to count the calories to make sure there's any sort of leeway at all. Because if I don't have the leeway, I balloon right back up again. And
well, yeah, and given your mobility issues, it must be quite challenging to, even be active enough to work off what, would be, quote, the average person's calories for your weight, yeah?
It's more the symptom as it's deteriorating with age, as in if it weren't, it's almost like at one point I was highly mobile and all of a sudden 26 and then suddenly the hip started to act up. As it was possibly from the mechanical strain in certain aspects of it, as in that there's not just muscles for the sumo wrestlers. There's two different types of sumo wrestlers. Really lean ones that are like 6'1" and 240 and are pretty much every bit like NFL linebackers, and ones that are more or less mutation driven. As in they're pretty much where you have something really abnormal and then they're pretty much only useful until, well, the joints wear out. And that's pretty much the consequence of what happened with me. Is now I'm pretty much one hard fall on the side of that right hip, a whole bunch of excess weight, and now I paid a price. It's sort of like you paid a price because a human body wasn't really meant, in my case, as in a human, given how certain things biologically, they weren't ever really made to be 270, 280 pounds and 6'2". That's sort of the weight that you expect somebody like the height of Shaquille O'Neal to be. As in,
well, I think we should be a bit careful when talking in too much detail about, the extremity of weights and such, because we are talking about eating disorders, and there are at least 2 people I know of who have got eating disorders in the chat. So we want to be at least a bit careful when talking about this stuff.
For me, the mechanical strain is what I'm talking about. It wore out parts of my joints.
Okay, and that's fine to talk about, but I'm talking about like, oh, well, Shaquille O'Neal's supposed to be my weight, etc. We don't know how heavy some of the folks in the chat are, so we don't want to inadvertently fat shame people.
I'm sorry for accidentally doing that.
Oh, I was warning you before it got too far.
Yeah, it's just for me, it's like the mental strain to me that led me out of it, that made me end up starting to show signs that almost look more like a different type of eating disorder has started to form, where I end up going in between the fasting, and it's almost like a different form of, it almost approach on bulimia when you mention the fasting type.
Yeah, fasting is one of the purging behaviors that is found in bulimia. I have starved myself for days on end in order to counteract a binge.
I do, given my height, even if I'm relatively immobile, I'll burn 2,000 calories relatively easy just because of the sheer height. But at the same time, it's still not exactly easy, as in it doesn't really give me much leeway unless I were to go extremely restrictive, which is kind of the troublesome part. Unless I go super restrictive, it ends up going into where it would end up going right back to where I came from. If I were to have a really bad binge, because I've still had days where I would consume an 18-inch pizza that's a deep dish from something that's meant for 4 or 5 people in the span of 15 minutes. And there's no shame. It's just like, there's just it's just because I do that stuff when I'm happy. It's like, but at this point, I have to budget everything out just to make sure that my weight doesn't return to where I used to be, or the dysphoria gets worse.
Yeah, and like where one accumulates weight can, I've heard, be challenging for trans folks as well. Like
Yeah.
I know, for example, I'm fluid. Most people know that. I go from non-binary to slash sort of agendered to feminine. And on my non-binary days, the fact that my body weight has accumulated in very specific, what you would call feminine places, I have effectively an hourglass figure just, blown up. So like at times that can be extremely triggering when when the pendulum swings towards the non-binary side.
Yeah, well, for me, there's actually a specific weight where it seems like the shape is the most feminine, which has actually kind of kept the stability unless I get to that thing. As in, but at the same time, given hormones, it probably won't. And seeing my own mom's shape, it's not like it would change much.
Mm-hmm.
As in, there's only slight differences. As in, maybe it'll just add a little bit, but it'll just end up making my arms a bit bigger in the fat composition. Thus a little bit here, a little bit there. It doesn't really. It just ends up dispersing it evenly everywhere. But at the same time, after a certain point, around 220 pounds, it really accumulates on the gut. And that gets me troubled. So it's like I never want to go above 220.
So is there any in particular incident that you would like to share, or can we move on to Jen? Because Jen actually mentioned that they might be a bit busy later on and have to jet. So I wanted to make sure that
I'll back up for the time being.
Okay. By the way, Jen, you use she, her pronouns, right? I wanted to make sure, because that's what I thought I saw in the Discord. Meowth?
Maybe muted, Jen.
We're not hearing you. Oh, we can see you now, but we're not hearing you.
Yeah, the technology thing, it always sucks. That's why we always start late. I wanted to comment, like, I have my own things with eating, but I'm 6'5". I'm probably around 260 pounds now, and I have very deep insecurities about it. Like I've been kind of joking about it, watching the year in review, look at that skinny Nakasuchi, but I think we often laugh about things that bother us, and it bothered me seeing how much really, like, because you notice every day, you know that you're getting bigger, and to really see the change, just it got to me. It's one of the things that I'm going to be working on this year is that I think I could relate to a lot, even though I don't know a lot about eating disorders. I could relate to a lot of what Hannibal was saying.
Mm-hmm. Jen, are we getting your mic working?
I don't know. Testing.
Oh, we can
There
hear
you
you
are,
now. So I wanted to make sure I was getting your pronouns right. I saw she, her on the Discord, but I wanted to make sure that was correct.
I go by she, her. The reason why I wanted to keep it brief wasn't because I have anything to do in particular. It's more so that this just kind of brings back bad memories.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that take care of yourself first over anything.
Yeah. I never really got diagnosed because I kind of kept everything hidden.
Well, that's very typical of eating disorders. It usually, quite often, it can take an intervention or hitting rock bottom, much like any, they function a lot like addictions in some ways.
Yeah. But throughout sophomore and junior year of high school, I would probably eat one meal every 2 to 3 weeks. And occasionally I would just like not eat at all, or I would, vomit it back up. But what got me to stop was actually my pride in my hair, which is ironic because it looks like trash right now. But it started falling out in clumps, and I was looking more like a corpse than I do now. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stop doing this. I still hate the way I look, and I wish I was back to 165, but I can't do it that way. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that did you struggle with a lot of shame because of your like did it come with binging at all?
No, I
Did you
just
struggle with a lot of shame because of your appearance?
I it had a lot to do with my appearance. Some of it the dysphoria, but also like I've always been a little bit obese, and like throughout high school, nobody picked on me or anything like that. I was more critical of myself because all throughout elementary and intermediate school, I was picked on for my weight and shit like that. So I was like, I don't know. It was a whole bunch of different emotions going on. A lot of depression, a lot of heavy times. Yeah.
Mhm. Did you did you say it started probably close to high school?
It started, like, sophomore year and then, continued on to the first semester of junior year, I believe, and
I
that's when I
don't
started, like, losing hair and stuff like that.
I don't know all that much about your background. Did any like loved ones notice any of this, or was it just sort of
Um,
a bit of neglect during that time?
no, I mean, like, my parents usually stayed out of my life, and they still thankfully let me, like, manage myself. That wasn't always the case, but, a lot of my friends would say that I had, like, really dark circles under my eyes, and I looked like I was, like, sick. And people would keep saying like people would keep reporting me to the teachers when they heard me during lunch in the bathroom. um so I had to explain, oh no, I just have a weak stomach. And so there were people who probably knew what was going on, but like nobody was certain of it, if that makes sense.
So, do you still like feel the urge to starve yourself? Like, is it something that you're actively fighting off, or
I mean, every now and then I look in the mirror and I'm like, yeah, you should probably stop eating. But I know that's illogical and irrational, so I don't do that. Um, yeah, I don't listen to the voice in the back of my head, but it
it's
still
still
brings up
there?
bad memories. Yeah, because I felt awful throughout the entire time. Like my stomach was, like when you feel empty, you feel empty. It hurts a lot. And so I was, like, in a lot of pain, but I kinda suffered through it because for some sick reason, I was feeling better about myself. Um, yeah. I haven't really shared this story to anyone, so,
Oh, well, I'm
um
so glad that you felt safe enough here to share it with us. It's an incredibly brave thing that you've done.
mm,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I'm grateful too. It's a hard thing to share personal stories. I know when I share personal stories, I get some backlash, but the gratifying thing is knowing that there's people out there that goes through the same exact shit that you went through, the same shit that I went through, and just um, people in the audience and people that will watch this video. The statistics say at least somebody will be able to relate and be encouraged by what you shared, and know that they're not alone, and that you know this shitty life sometimes it gets the best of all of us, I think.
yeah, now that you bring that up, I think there is something I would like to say to anyone in the audience who might be struggling with this. Not eating is not the way to go about losing weight healthy. I've I've managed to actually diet and have a consistent meal plan that made me lose weight later on in life, and it feels a lot better when you're actually eating food and you don't end up looking like a disease-ridden, like, zombie, basically. So if you if you look at yourself and you're like, I should do something harmful to try to lose weight, realize that that's not maintainable, and eventually your body's just gonna quit on you. Um, so yeah, if anyone's watching this playback, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure it
and
is.
especially because mental health treatment isn't widely available. You know, there was a person in the chat who said that some of the descriptions that I read earlier sounded like them, and but they didn't have insurance, so they weren't sure if they could go get diagnosed. And you know, my response to that generally is depending on what state you're in, there are some programs where, like, some places will do like charging based off of income levels if you're sort of in that in between space where you don't make quite enough to buy insurance off the exchanges, but you do make too much for state insurance. So it's worth to actually look into various, particularly any sort of mental health like group. Like if you have like a local community center type clinic with multiple providers, because a lot of those will have progressive payment type plans that you can do to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist and get diagnosed and potentially treated. So it's still expensive. And I know that when you're in that income bracket, you don't have a lot of money to spare, but you know, you can't make money if you're dead, and unfortunately these disorders can literally kill you. When I tell my story later, I'll talk about ending up in the hospital because I starved myself for too long, and this was prior to getting diagnosed celiac, so my intestines were so damaged that we didn't know I wasn't absorbing nutrients right, but starving myself for that long, I got very, very ill because I was already dealing with malnutrition because my body wasn't working right. So, you know, folks who've got bulimia, who've got anorexia, orthorexia, etc., even if you're not diagnosed, if you are having problems with your eating, there may be a way for you to get help. And if nothing else, there's always, and I hate recommending 12-step programs, but if it's nothing else, these are generally free. You know, Overeaters Anonymous, Anorexics Anonymous, and Bulimics Anonymous, as much as if you absolutely have no other treatment program whatsoever, sometimes the 12-step programs can be some helpful for some people until they can get actual evidence-based treatment. So, but
And
yeah,
I think another thing I picked up from Jen's story is I think people, you know, I think that there's this line where you don't want to be rude or you don't want to impose on somebody's personal life. And I think that if people were more willing to kind of maybe step across that line sometimes, especially if you are seeing maybe some severe changes, and just let people know that, hey, you know, you don't have to tell everybody, but you can tell me. I think that would go a long way to helping a lot of people. But I think that there is the stigma against that sort of thing. That we don't want to, you know, intrude on somebody's personal life when sometimes maybe intruding could be helpful.
Yeah, that's a. I think that's a good message. I'm gonna hop out of the room in case
Yeah.
someone else wants to share their story. I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time.
Yeah,
So
thanks for sharing,
thanks
Jen.
for having
thank
me.
you.
I really
Like,
appreciate it.
For
Every
sure.
time we've spoken, it's been awesome.
well, and I wanted to
I'm glad to hear
reiterate,
that.
Jen, like one diagnosed eating bulimia, you know, bulimic to an anorexic, I suppose. You know, the fact that you came on here and even on camera, like, you know, with the dysphoria I know you deal with all of the, you know, everything that goes into this, I'm honored that you chose here to share this very personal story. Like, thank you so much for your courage for sharing this. Like, I
For
want to
sure.
emphasize how much that means.
I'm always happy to be on stream with both of y'all. Y'all are really nice, and I just felt as though this is something I wanted to get off my chest. So I'm a head out. I'll probably still be in the side chat and listening into y'all for a while.
All right. Yeah.
Um,
Thank you for coming in.
have a good rest of your night.
All right. So I actually got a DM from somebody who wanted to share their story anonymously. So I'm going to go ahead and read that out really quick.
All right. Real quick, Ellie, I'm gonna go and fill my soda glass. I'll be right back.
Okay. So this is my typical shilling section 2 before I start reading this off. Reminder to everyone, we've got 33 people watching and only 13 likes. I know that this is a heavy topic, but it really helps us in the algorithm. And it's very difficult for us to put on the mental health streams just because quite often it's so different from our regular subject matter that sometimes it confuses the algorithm. So if you guys could give us a thumbs up, that would help a lot with our attempts at getting the channel some growth and also in being able to sort of spread the message and have more, I guess, attention on these sorts of streams, because these are sort of a PSA. So we've got a super chat from Les Nagy, $20. Best of luck for the new year in every aspect. Thank you so much, Les. So this person wanted to remain anonymous, but they sent me a couple of DMs. They said, so mine developed more in the military. It was kind of forced. I've been recovering for a year with relapses. In the military, they demand that you keep underweight. My chain of command even demanded that I stay under 120 pounds. So to even try, I started cutting calories and starving myself. This was my first year and some bits. I stayed that way for the entire time and it got bad. And I said, do you still struggle with it? And they said, yes, but I manage. So this is another sort of important thing. There's a lot of different reasons why eating disorders can develop. In this case, this person was in the military and they were forced to keep severely underweight and ended up developing a bunch of, psychological things and starvation tendencies around that. And your body sort of adjusts over time. So it gets more and more difficult to maintain that. There's an over-exercising component with the military as well. So, just remember that not all eating disorders develop because of, childhood trauma or things like that. There are recent things that can happen in adulthood that can also cause such things. So, I sent Will a link. He warned us that he's going to be using self-depreciating humor, which is perfectly fine as long as you're mocking yourself and nobody else. Just be very careful when talking about weight and things like that, since we're talking about specifically eating disorders and such. There are folks with eating disorders in the chat that may be a bit affected by that. So welcome to the stream, Will.
And I'm not sure if you read the super chat, Ali, but Les Nagy.
I did.
Oh, you did? Thank you so much, Les. Awesome, my man from down under.
How you doing?
What up, Will?
I'm Will Kincaid, and I eat random shit, mostly paper and plastic. I have pica.
So I'm not sure what pica is. You might have explained it earlier.
It's pica.
Pica.
Not over here. I don't know. It might just. It doesn't matter. It's how it's pronounced, but yeah, the general idea.
So,
I think it started probably when I might have been about 4 or 5 years old. I ate probably $3.50 in assorted change. Sorry, my wife is giving me side eye. She's looking at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then I think when I was like 8, I got this weird fixation with eating like sandbox sand. And then I got into school and it evolved into like glue and erasers. And then I want to say I was probably started in middle school and it was paper, and it's kind of tipped off now. I mean, I'll chew the occasional straw or pen cap or pencil eraser, but I think I've got it pretty much under control at this point. But I didn't see that you had anybody from my camp represented, so I thought I'd rep the Pica Pro, the Pica. I'm pretty sure. Well, it's PICA, so I think that's. There's another one that has a K, and I'm not sure if it's a variant spelling on it or what it is, but
I'm not sure. I've never seen it with a K, but I do know that Pica or Pica, I'm not absolutely certain how it's pronounced. I've heard it pronounced both ways. So, but like either way, PICA is the way that I've heard it, that I've seen it spelled. And yeah, did you ever discover was it a psychological thing, or did you ever find that it was?
It's mostly an oral fixation. Occasionally, like the good majority of the time after I stopped ingesting stuff, for the most part, it just became a chewing oral fixation thing. Something about the texture of the chewing. I'm not sure.
Was it sort of like a form of stimming? Because I think you mentioned once before that you were autistic, correct?
Yeah, I am. Yep.
Okay.
I'm high functioning end of the spectrum. I guess Asperger's isn't even a thing anymore. So now they've re-diagnosed me as on the spectrum, a neurotypical. So
Yeah. So yeah, like they discovered that there were some problems with the Asperger's diagnosis, if I recall correctly. So they ended up just folding it into sort of autism spectrum, and because of just the variations within autism. Yeah, that I've heard of that sort of thing developing as a form of stimming, though again, I'm not an expert in this sort of thing, but like if you ended up chewing on a bunch of
well,
stuff, I know that I've chewed on pen caps and erasers and things like that as a form of stimming to try to keep my brain focused like during school and such.
well, yeah, but once I was able to buy my own cigarettes, it just turned into smoking, and then pretty much all the eating stuff dipped off. Um, every once in a while, I'll get a craving for something weird like that, but I try to. I mean, it's like even just like paper, what you would think is like, oh, it's just wood pulp, right? It's full of chemicals and shit. Or you can't imagine what it does to my guts.
Yeah, I actually
So
grew up with somebody that did the same thing. It was pencils, erasers, paper, sometimes tree
yeah,
bark, and we all kind of as a group. I think that we were actually good friends and helped him, get through it. And I don't think that he did it by high school. It seemed to be like just a junior high thing, if I remember correctly, or late elementary, junior high down there. That it was a lot different back then with the grade systems and everything.
I remember when I was younger. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I must have been in middle school. I was charging people to watch me eat fucking pine cones. Not like those big like the ones you see that come out for like the scented pine cones, not those giant ones. They're like small, probably the size of your average peanut. I remember that distinctly. I think I made $10 that day. I turned my weird eating habit into a racket.
Yeah, that's how my friend did the same exact thing. Yeah, he would
Yeah,
charge people to eat crazy stuff.
yeah. I mean, it's a good racket until the crippling depression kicks in. You know,
Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on and talking about that. Like, I hadn't even thought about that since probably since I left North Carolina. But
well, I
as
mean,
he
there's
was talking,
probably
I was seeing the visual images of my friend doing the same exact thing.
yeah, there's probably tons of people who have pica and they just never go and get diagnosed or do anything about it because it's just like it's just so out there and weird. And then people like my strange addiction has basically created this whole new stigma to be, you know,
Stigma.
yeah, it's this whole thing where it's like, oh, come look at the freak. So
Yeah, my strange addiction, I think it fits their hold on. Hey Knock, can you get Lady Tasha a link? She says that she would like to come and share.
Yeah, yeah.
She said she's not on Discord, otherwise I'd send her one.
Let me turn on. I'd have to turn. Yeah, I have to turn on Discord to get the link. But yeah, give me a second.
She said she's not on Discord.
No, I have to get on Discord to get the link you sent me.
Oh, here, I'll just put it in side chat.
All right.
Here, this is the Zoom link. It's in the side chat. That way you don't have to log on to Discord. There you go. But yeah, so I think my strange addiction is it's very much developing a stigma around pica/pica. I think that it's right there with sort of the Biggest Loser when it comes to like developing stigma around, weight issues and eating issues in general. Right? It's sort of a spectacle to mock people who are different rather than, acknowledging these things for the actual psychological problems that they are.
right, it's yeah. I mean, I was just thinking. I don't know why, but I was just. Do you guys know Boogie 2988?
I'm
That
familiar with
sounds
Boogie, yeah.
really familiar. Is that the dude that does? Does he talk about WoW, or did he used to talk about
Yeah,
WoW?
it's the Francis.
All right,
He
yeah,
just
yeah, I know exactly.
posted.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He's done a lot of weird, strange videos where like he gets on Twitch and he talks about killing himself and he's still overweight. But he just posted something today on his YouTube because now you can post like photos and not just upload videos and stuff. He was showing a video. He was showing a picture from 2010 versus now he's got a whole new set of teeth, and he looks like he's lost a good 200 pounds. And he's still going on about being overweight and he's gonna die and all this. I was just thinking to myself, what is your target goal? I mean, like, you lost a lot of weight. If you had shown me those two people and I didn't know who Boogie 2988 was, I wouldn't have known it was the same person. They look completely different. Even the bone structure in the face, I can't. It's unrecognizable.
Yeah, I haven't seen him recently.
His whole
I think I only
personality
watched a
changed.
couple of videos because every once in a while he just put out like really crazy shit on WoW, and everybody in my guild would they'd throw something in guild chat, a link in guild chat, and we'd all laugh about it.
Right. But yeah, so I mean, like, I forget what the point of me bringing that up was, but I just thought it was interesting because it's like, okay, so you go from binging to compulsively dieting, and you have still dysphoria, but in the opposite sort of way. So it's like, oh,
Dysmorphia.
dysmorphia. Sorry, it's like, if you have an addiction, or not an addiction. What's the word I'm looking for? If you have an eating disorder, does it ever like stop, or do you just fight it for your entire life and hope that it doesn't end up killing you one way or the other?
So I've heard differing things on this. In much the same way as we were talking about like PTSD, where there's no such thing as a cure for PTSD. Sorry, messenger. But you can get it to the point where it can be managed. Hey, welcome, Tasha.
Hey, what's up, Tasha?
I think that eating disorders are much the same way. I think I've heard stories of people who have received treatment and have gotten their eating disorder to the point where it only shows up during extreme times of distress. But I've also heard some people who say they got through treatment and they just have the tools to cope with the urges that are still coming. So I think it depends on the person and how effective the treatment they go through for it ends up being.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's sad that, it doesn't seem like for me, I'll probably be all right. But for other people who, like, people know what I do for work, I won't disclose. I mean, I've disclosed it to Knock before, but it's not public. But what I do for work includes me taking care of people who have various things like that going on, and it's like, it just seems like it just gets worse for most people until eventually they just. I mean, again, I can't talk about it, but it just.
No,
Let's just leave it at that.
I think I know where you're getting at. Like I had a friend who was bulimic growing up as well. Like and she was, uh, it was sad to watch her progress through that. She was one of the unfortunate ones that succumbed to it. Um, yeah, and that's the important thing of these streams, and that's what I was trying to get out there with Jen. Is I think culturally we all need to be more aware of these things, and that's why I wanted to have this stream, even though I didn't know near as much about eating disorders as I did, say, the mental health stream that we did, or a lot of these deeper streams. I think we've had two to where I've had to have the trigger warning now.
Yeah, the
And
self-harm stream was the other one.
Yeah, the self harm stream, and I think it's important to have these conversations because we need to be more aware. Because I think it would be very easy for somebody to be struggling with this and you not even know it because you're just not aware that it's even a thing really, or it's an easy thing to not think about.
Or you're only aware of the stereotypical images of it. Like, I've had people, when I say I'm bulimic, they take a look at me and they go, "You can't be bulimic." And it's like, no, I might have maxed out at 320 pounds, but that doesn't make me not bulimic. It just means I'm both overweight and bulimic, which makes the bulimia worse. Like, you can be anorexic and overweight. It's atypical anorexia is what the classification would be because, one of the symptoms supposedly is being underweight. And for most people it is. But, binge purge cycles can cause massive weight gain. there's a bunch of different things that people don't understand about eating disorders. So I think it's also destigmatization and education as well, because, Will, much like you talked about with My Strange Addiction heavily stigmatizes pica/pica. So people who suffer from it, may be afraid to get help because they're afraid of being mocked, particularly by friends and family if you're going through treatment or other things,
Right. And when I was younger, I used to just compulsively eat pretty much all the time, but my metabolism could keep up with it. It actually kept up with it too effectively. I was underweight, and my doctor said that I needed to be taking in more calories at the time anyway. So I was eating pretty much constantly, and I wasn't gaining any weight. And then when my metabolism dropped off after I think it was probably just started my 20s, maybe I was 19. I started to just balloon. It just went, all right, my metabolism was like, I'm gonna head out. And then all of a sudden, I just started to get overweight. And I was like, well, fuck, now I gotta learn how to diet and shit.
I'm right there with you right now. I've never had to worry about dieting. I actually did what I did what Jen said not to do. I used to pretty much starve myself to lose weight, and I'd get to a certain weight, and then I'd eat regular.
My brother went
but
through
now
the
it's like
inverse.
I'm thinking I really want to do it the healthy way. I want to diet, and I'm looking into all these different workouts, and I'm right there with you now. I'm learning a whole bunch of new shit.
My brother did the inverse for his whole life. He was always I don't know, massively overweight, and then all of a sudden he became a teenager, and right around 18 or 19 he just lost 200-300 pounds, and now we're about the same height and weight. So it goes both ways.
See, I always picture you as a very short person.
No, I'm somewhere between 6 and 6'1". I'm not quite 6 even, but my brother's
My
probably closer to
self-image
your
of you
height.
is completely shattered.
My brother's about 6'2" or 3, and he just keeps getting fucking taller. I don't know what it is. He went from being short and fat to tall and skinny. He's like, I don't even recognize you anymore, bro.
So, Will, do you have anything more about your experiences with your disorder that you'd like to share? You mentioned that you've never really talked about it.
That was the other thing that I wanted to say. This is the first, last, and probably only time I'll talk about it, because it's not something I'm proud of.
Well, that's completely fair, and thank you so much for coming on here and talking to us about it. Much like I said for Jen, that's a really big deal.
Yeah, it just kind of makes me feel like shit. Even I'm pretty sure I don't think I've talked to anybody about it at all. I just kind of went and got the diagnosis. I got a lot of diagnoses all at once. I had a full screening when my insurance was gonna run out, so I just was like, better get all this shit done before I find out later that I was gonna, I had something that was treatable if I had just taken care of it, and then so. That's why my wife was giving me side eye, because I'm pretty sure she's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, well, this is how I've chosen to do it, I guess. This is how I do everything. I get online and I just that one stream.
I'm not digging at you, but I'm fairly certain your wife be giving you side eye a lot.
Oh, shit. Yeah, well, some of the things I say sound completely off the wall, fucking insane. So I'll give you credit for that one.
I am glad you came in here. I haven't looked at it yet. J-Dub sent me an email about a conversation. I haven't looked at it yet, so I need to get it. I gotta clean out my emails and make that a thing again.
Knock, we've got another guest who wants to share.
Yeah, I do want to get to Lady
we can cover
Tasha.
this stuff later.
I wanted to thank you for coming in, Will, and sharing, taking me back to my friend. Man, I hadn't thought about him in a good 20 years, probably 30 years. So, thank you for coming in.
No problem. I'll let her talk, and I'll drop down to chat. I'll see you guys later.
All right, well.
Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What's up, Lady Tasha? It's been a while.
I know, it's been a hot minute. How are you?
I'm good. I'm feeling good at going into 2020. And I think I crushed my debate earlier today, so I've been on one of those highs.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's really good.
It's nice to meet you, by the way. You haven't been on the stream since before I became a moderator.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet you too. I've been listening in, and you sound amazing. So
yeah, I just got promoted to co-host with Knock. We're working on a bunch of stuff, but I'm sort of in shock, to be honest. Like, it's been a heck of a 6 months.
Yeah,
wow,
we've come a long
I know.
way.
I've been like MIA because I've been going through a lot of my own stuff, but that's like super awesome. And yeah, I haven't really been around because I was just like dealing with shit. But I'm glad that I'm back. I like started to, slide into the conversation. So, and I saw, honestly, what made me come back was the I don't want to like talk about it too much, but the PTSD thing that you did, Knock, actually got me hooked again because it just made me like think about a whole bunch of shit, but in like a good way.
Good.
So
For what it's worth, by the way, I was just as pissed at him. I suffer from CPTSD as well, so hearing about
so it
that
is a real diagnosis.
So it isn't something that's in the DSM-5, but there are a number of, as I explained when we talked about mental health the first time that when we did the self-harm stream, CPTSD is currently being tested to be in the DSM-6. It didn't have enough clinical backing to make it into 5, but there are a number of practitioners who specialize in PTSD that will treat it, even though it's like orthorexia. It doesn't actually exist as a separate diagnosis, but because of the research that has been done on it, there are a number of clinicians who will classify certain people with it and treat it slightly differently than they would typical, like, say, one incident style PTSD. So it's sort of mixed whether or not it's a real diagnosis, quote unquote. It is a form of PTSD. It's just not DSM-5 recognized. It's sort of considered to be a subclassification that some practitioners will treat.
And he literally told Tasha to Google it, and as I demonstrated, I Googled it, and the first fucking thing you see there is that explanation exactly.
Yeah, it was. Oh my gosh. Yeah, wow. That's all I had to say about that. It's just wow.
And from what you were saying in the side chat, by the way, mine probably stems from a very similar abuse pattern to what you were saying yours comes from.
Yeah, I've had like a terrible relationship with food like all of my life, and it stems from my trauma, but like also it stems from the fact that one of my last foster moms, she would like constantly give me food, and like anytime I was like good or I behaved, like she just used food as like affection. So like I was just constantly being fed, and then when I got adopted, like my mom was just like I was always expecting that, like, oh well, I did good today, like don't I get a cookie, like don't I get a snack? My mom was like no, like, so it was like really hard. And then throughout high school it was like fine because I was like active and like I don't know, just like healthy. And then once like junior year hit, I started to like look like a woman and like just freaked out so bad. I like couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle men looking at me. I just couldn't handle it. So I just started eating like a lot, and I just kept eating, and I kept gaining weight, and I kept gaining weight. And here I am now. But like for me, it wasn't like I just woke up one day and was like, oh my God, I'm just going to be like fat. Like it was like a process. So like for years, I love my mom to death, but like we fought so hard because she was just like, you're like, you don't even care. And I'm like, you don't understand. But like now we have a better understanding. It wasn't like I didn't want to be fat, and I wasn't fat to piss her off. I was fat because I didn't want to be thin. I didn't want anyone looking at me because of my trauma. So like that's where my eating issues come from. So it wasn't, I don't know. There's like, as a feminist, I can't even with the fat phobia. Like I can't. So, but sorry,
I mean,
go ahead.
Would you say that, because I know for me growing up a little bit, first off, my parents were extremely food restrictive. Like, I got beaten once, and I'll talk about this when I talk about my own thing. And let me know, by the way, if you've got triggers and such that I have to be concerned for. If I step on one of them, let me know.
Okay, absolutely.
So, because I don't want to get too deep into something that might be, cause discomfort.
Right.
I got severely beaten once because they had brought home a box of Wheat Thins, and apparently they were for my sister, but I got into them
Right.
because they were in the cupboard and they weren't labeled or anything, and they beat me for, quote, stealing food, effectively.
Oh my God.
My stepfather would dump my dinner on the floor or in the garbage or in the dog's bowls. Sometimes when my mother wasn't home, there was a lot of fucked up stuff that happened.
Oh my gosh.
So sometimes though, like when I was at school or in things, because of the food insecurity, I would eat a lot at school. They gave me, when I got to high school, they gave me lunch money. And
Okay.
so I figured out that you could spend the lunch money at the student store and purchase, like snack foods and things. And I was always starving because of the aforementioned starvation. So I would get snack foods and stuff. I noticed that looking back on it, a lot when people would make fun of me or when I would be, have discomfort from something, I would eat in order to suppress that, like in the moment. And I'm curious if you experienced that too, if that might have been part of the weight gain, or if you've ever actually looked at that as a possibility.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you said that. Yes, like anytime I like felt negative about myself, or like I just had like a bad day, I would just be like, well, fuck everything, and I just would like eat and eat and eat, and like I just didn't care. And like it sounds awful, and like I understand that we should all be healthy. I promote healthiness, but like when your brain is just like attacking you and when you're feeling like shit in your body, you just don't care. So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. And for me, like my birth aunt also deprived me of food. So like there's that aspect where I'm like always worried that I don't have enough food in my cupboard, or like I don't, I'm not gonna have enough. So like sometimes I will just like overeat. So yeah, there's like a lot of psychological shit that I'm trying to still like figure out. But yeah, it's not fun. Like it's not fun. And then being overweight, people just look at you and they assume that, oh, you're just like fat, you're gluttonous, you're lazy. And like that's not true at all. Because if you talk to me, then you know the real story. I'm not just like being fat just to be fat. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and I also too, I
does.
grew up with a lot of my friends were cutting themselves. Oh, and half of them were bulimic. So like I was surrounded by girls who were like self-harming and like starving themselves and throwing up. And I even self-harmed when I was 13 for the first time, actually 12, because of another trauma. So like it's a lot. It's hard being a kid. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and again, I completely understand. It does make sense. I'm overweight. I'm extremely active, and I actually am losing weight under the supervision of the counselor that is overseeing my eating disorder stuff, because I have some complications both due to my celiacs and due to the severe weight gain that I ended up with that are starting to cause damage to certain parts of my body. And so I'm having to lose that weight or I won't be able to get treatment for some of them. Like, for example, I've got plantar fasciitis in my right foot, and they made me lose 50 pounds before they'd be willing to give me the injection of hormones that I needed in that tendon in order to get it to, like, the swelling to go down so I could walk and exercise and do other things again. But people, when they see how heavy I am, because I'm between a size 22 and 24 at the moment, I'm very short. So like when I'm quoting my weight as being on the lower end, it's still very high for my height, according to the BMI, which is bullshit, but it's still the
it's bullshit. Yeah.
I'm supposed to be between 95 and 135 pounds. And at the moment I'm just under 250.
Wow. I'm supposed to be, what's mine? I think because I'm 5'2", I'm supposed to be like 120 pounds or like 119 pounds, which, mind you, when I was in high school, when I was in 10th grade, I was 120 pounds. But like, that's because I was a teenager. And like, I do plan on losing weight, and I'm not going to be 119 pounds as a 28-year-old. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I'm not a teenager. Like, my metabolism worked then. It has slowed down so much now. Like, I don't know. I've always hated that chart. But I remember obsessing about it when I was like young. So I don't know. I think it's dangerous. I think so many people out there are just suffering from like food issues because of that. So
yeah, and I mean, I think that there does need to be some sort of guide, but I think that the one that we're using is not based on good research, and it hasn't been questioned for a long time because it's easy. That's my opinion.
Right.
Like, when I went to school for nutrition. I didn't finish because I had health issues and things toward the end. So I basically got all of the actual education done, and I got halfway through my residency. And then I had health issues, and there was shit that came up with the college, and I ended up not finishing.
Okay.
So this was actually treating eating disorders was what I was trying to go into. I was trying to be basically the nutritionist that you would send an eating disorder client to help get their life back in order, so to speak.
Right.
Like that's what I wanted to open up a practice. Because I noticed that a lot of the nutritionists that I saw would ignore my eating disorder diagnosis and just focus on my weight, and I wanted to be the one that didn't.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You know what's funny? So when I was living in Ithaca, I used to go to these Overeaters Anonymous meetings, and I really liked them. And then I went to some other meeting called like Food Addicts Anonymous, but like I hated them because they were so judgmental of the Overeaters Anonymous people. They were like, oh, well, you should come to us because you'll actually lose weight and half those people are still fat. And I was just like, bye. And like, I never went again because I felt like it was so elitist. And also, like, I don't believe in restricting. I don't even believe in dieting. But like, it's just that kind of attitude and like this sort of like fat phobic stuff that was coming out of their mouth. Like, it just triggered me really bad. And then I never went again. In fact, I think I just stopped all those meetings, but like that really sealed the deal for me. I was like, wow.
I actually did
like to have another group of people like fat shame another group. Like, I don't know. I didn't like that. That was really like insensitive. I don't know, but I thought it was really insensitive.
Yeah, for me, I went to Overeaters Anonymous. I found it to be fairly supportive, but I also found that, at the very least, at the meetings that I was going to specifically, I found that people were very, very negative, rather than you know, like people were it. Like, I really dislike the term, you know, like Oppression Olympics, because it's used in such a bad way, but it felt sometimes like people were trying to run up each other about how miserable they were. I mean, these are my impressions as a teenager, but like when you came in and you had a good week, it felt as though you were almost unwelcome.
Oh, okay. I never felt that way in my meetings. I think if anything, I felt like really good. Like when I talked about like my food issues, like they handed me a box of tissues. I was like, oh my God, like da da da. And like everyone hugged me at the end. So like no one, I don't know. That's just my experience though. I don't want to say that that's for everyone, but yeah, I felt more welcome in Overeaters Anonymous than I did in Food Addicts Anonymous, because like I felt like they were like elitist and like really rude. I don't know.
There isn't really a central governing body for the anonymous groups. Like, they're all sort of individually run. So it could have just been, I mean, this is in Omaha, Nebraska that I was going to this. So it might not have been, it might have been just the specific group. And I prefaced it with that because I know that there are much better ones that are out there. It's just, this was my experience.
I think it's a flaw. Right. I think it's a flaw in those systems because, you know, I've been through AA and NA a lot. I've spoken about my drug addiction, especially at a young age. And it is the different groups that you go to will have completely different atmospheres, and it's really hard not to develop favorite groups and grow attached to those ways of thinking, because the each group, I mean, you could have an AA group here and then one down the street, and those two groups will be very different feelings as you're walking into them.
Yeah.
So as far as treatment and stuff, since that's sort of a part of, you know, everything that I wanted to talk about, I hadn't gotten a chance to ask the other folks, but have you received any sort of treatment for your eating disorder stuff? Is that something you're comfortable talking about?
Yeah, it's totally fine. No, I never have, because so for me, there was a point there where I was just like really like obsessed with like dieting, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna try this diet, where I would just like try diets, and I do really good. Like, me and my friend, we went on a diet of just eating like fruits and like vegetables, and that's it. Like, no dairy, no bread, no anything. I'm sorry in the comments if I trigger anyone. That's not my intent, but like I was
we have the trigger warning up for a reason. As long as you're not doing anything close to fat shaming, which is the only thing that I flagged anybody for, you're welcome to speak freely.
Okay. So I was doing good, and then I found that I was like really hungry. So I just went back to doing what I was doing before, and I felt better. And my friend was like, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore either. But then at work, at this fucking job I was at, they were like, oh, well, we knew you guys weren't going to be able to like stick to it. And then he was like, And then the guy looked at me, he's like, well, you being a black woman, like, come on, like, you really need to be healthy. Like, your guys' mortality rate is like the worst. And I like looked at him and I was like,
the fuck is your problem, dude?
I was like, oh my God. And he's like, I'm not trying to be
Nazi
mean,
much?
but like as a black woman, like you know, you guys are like the most unhealthiest, like just the worst. And I was like, oh my God. Like I couldn't believe it. And also, that's not true.
I mean, the
And
closest
also,
thing.
black women are
Some
healthy.
fat-ass
There's
white
black
dudes
women
down
out
in North
there.
Carolina with you. I'm just telling you that right now.
I mean, you know, Queen Bee, just saying. I mean,
That's
I will say
ridiculous.
that, like, genetically, the only thing that I can think of for African American folks is just that genetically, African American folks are more likely to be predisposed to having high cholesterol because that is a genetic thing. And sickle cell anemia is the other one, though it's fairly rare outside of like Africa. But apart from that, like, you know, honestly, everybody eats the standard American diet just about, so like we're all kind of equally fucked. It just might hit some people harder if you've got a genetic
race
problem.
into it is just like ridiculous. You know, it's like how do you explain all those athletes that are in just top physical shit? Like, you know, it's such a complex topic to try to get racist with. It's kind of ridiculous. I'm sorry that you even had to experience that.
Yeah,
Well, and
I
I
don't
mean,
think,
like,
like,
I
I
get
don't
those
think he was
sorts of-
trying to be mean. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I get those sorts of comments because I've got the British accent and everything, but I'm actually a half breed. I'm half British, half Haida. So I'm First Nations.
What's
And I
Haida?
get First Nations.
Okay.
So I get those sorts of comments about alcoholism, and it's like, yeah, my family's an AA meeting, but that doesn't make me an alcoholic.
I should have let Earl come out this stream. I do apologize for that. Earl slipped
That's
out a little
okay.
bit. But it's just ridiculous that somebody brought racism into it with you. It's, you know, it's just like, no. I mean, I think that I'd have evidence against that. It's such a ridiculous statement.
And also, I was looking up recently, black people are living longer now. Especially black women actually are living longer now. So, you know what I mean?
Well, and not
Like,
only that, but like, you know, African American folks and, you know, like women in particular are less likely to receive high quality healthcare from doctors. Like systemic racism and poverty have more to do with African American health outcomes than anything else, as far as I can tell, when it comes to reading the research, because they're more likely to be, you know, and I'm saying they just because I'm not, you know, African American myself, so forgive me if that sounds rude. But African American folks, from what I've read, are more likely to deal with poverty, the effects of systemic racism, which have, you know, like long-reaching impacts all over the entire body. Like we're only just now beginning to study the impacts of chronic stress and such on the body, and of things like genetic trauma and epigenetic damage, you know, like, and, you know, poverty means that there's access to worse quality healthcare, and the healthcare that you do have access to, there's certain predispositions, assumptions, like African American people are unhealthy that your doctor's going to throw at you. And if you happen to be female and or overweight on top of it, you are far more likely to receive lower quality healthcare because everything gets blamed on your weight, etc. So there's a lot more complex issues there than just black people are unhealthy culturally or genetically or whatever the fuck some person was thinking in the back of their brain there.
They use that because they felt like they could, and they might not even been trying to be mean. They might have been trying to help or whatever. But the statement,
I think he was trying to help, but I just like it was so offensive. Like I just was so like taken aback. I don't know.
It's like when, you know, white people tell me that, you know, my white blood overrides my Native American blood or blah 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 blah. And it's like,
so how about you just go ahead and sit and spin?
Exactly. Sit and spin. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, look at Lizzo. She's like on stage, like doing all sorts of crazy shit. Is she unhealthy? I don't think so. And she's happy. So like, let her be happy. I don't know.
Yeah,
because like people are flipping out,
and being supportive and understanding that human beings are human beings. There is a stigma in the society that you need to look a certain way, and I think that it's totally unfair because you need to look how you're comfortable looking, and you need to be happy with yourself and be a good human being. And if you are, then it shouldn't matter this outside exterior, what we look like or what the world should tell us is beautiful. As long as we know we are.
Well, and this is something that I always feel mixed about because, on the one hand, movements like Health at Every Size are working very hard to destigmatize being overweight. But on the other hand,
Mhm.
there are negative health outcomes related specifically to weight. Most of them have to do with things like your joints,
Oh,
you know, and
I'm all
such, you know.
for,
So, but shaming people
yeah.
for their weight and doctors focusing on weight to the exclusions of other things don't help. So it's this sort of like mixed issue where on the
Yeah.
one hand there are problems related to weight, on the other hand a lot of the ways that people try to deal with that end up with worse health outcomes than than the weight
Mhm.
causes. So
Yeah,
it's
fat
it's such
shaming
an,
doesn't work.
Yeah, I
Like
think
that
we should
just
be advocating for
and neither
health.
does concern
Um,
trolling, which is itself fat shaming.
No.
It's just
Yeah.
a different kind of thing.
We should be
Yeah, it
advocating
is.
for healthy lifestyles, and I think that's why we have these conversations, is because it helps with that. But at the same time, like what I'm really trying to hammer home is just society needs to understand how we treat people, and we can treat people better. And
Yeah.
and yeah, but it is a really mixed subject, Ali. You're exactly right, because you know you do want to promote healthy lifestyles and whatnot, but I do try to promote also that all human beings are equal. All human beings have merit. All human beings are we're pretty much the same. We have the same hopes, the same dreams, the same desires. We go through the same
Yeah.
fucked up shit. We all experience traumas in this life. I don't care how good you think you have it, and I think
Right.
it's just time that we recognize that more and advocate for that healthier lifestyle at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, and I
But
think
also, and stop obsessing over what you put in your mouth. Like, that's what I've been doing lately, is just like stop worrying about it. Like, if you want a cookie, then just eat a cookie. Or if you want a salad with chicken on it, then just have it. Like, I don't know. Like, we've
Well,
become so
I
obsessed
need
with
to
like,
eat more salads, but when I talk about my little eating issue, I mean I've talked about it a little bit. Ali knows about it. Is I need to eat more vegetables because I don't eat any of them. But I'll talk about it when it's my turn.
Okay.
So, I think, like, for me, and this is not an advertisement or anything, this is just what I have been doing. I've
Uh-huh.
actually, funnily enough, I've been doing Weight Watchers. I joined because it was the only dieting program that I've ever seen that does not trigger my eating disorder. The points are sort of nebulous enough that I don't get obsessed the way that I do when I'm counting any sort of macros.
Uh-huh.
And funnily enough, like, kind of like what you were talking about, if I want a cookie, I can just have a cookie. Like, the key is
Right.
I can have these things that I want. I found that I'll get these big bags of crisps. You'll get like Hawaiian crisps are my favorite. I'll bag them
Uh-huh.
out into individual portion sizes, and I'll just have one if I want to have that for a snack, if I'm craving that flavor. The idea
Right.
being you can have things, and I'm actually learning what moderation means. And again, this isn't an
Oh, that's
advertisement. I'm
awesome.
not encouraging people who have eating disorders that don't to, I'm doing this under the like supervision of my counselor who is treating my eating disorder. Like, this was
Mhm.
something that I'm seeing her every single week, and I have
Right.
like her cell number for emergencies and things. So that's the only reason I can pull this off, is I have to under doctor's orders and I'm being monitored. But
Right.
I found actually that it has changed a lot of the way that I think about food, and so has the cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the actual treatment I'm doing for my eating disorder. I'm finding I eat 5 times a day. I have 2 snacks, and they're timed by the clock because my ADHD medication makes it so I can't feel hunger signals. So I have to eat by the clock, spaced out throughout the day, and I have
Okay.
3 meals, and they're relatively small meals. And going through that sort of program has taught me a lot about portion sizes. I've lost 74 pounds over the course of a year and a half.
That's
Um,
great.
and I did it without, like, at the beginning, I sort of obsessed, but now I'm sort of normalizing this eating pattern to where I'm not hungry all the time when my meds are kicked out. And I'm not, like, I don't feel like food is the most important, exciting thing in my life anymore. I still love cooking, and I still,
Right.
am passionate about flavor and stuff, but it's not the most exciting part of my day anymore. I've slowly sort of learned how to change the way that I think about it. So I'm not scared of cookies anymore, but I'm not obsessed with them either.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm trying to do more like intuitive eating. I don't know if you've heard of that. I just
Yeah,
like
I
their
have.
philosophy.
I tried it once, but the problem is my medication makes it so I literally can't feel those signals. So, like,
Oh,
unfortunately,
okay.
it doesn't work for me.
Okay.
Because stimulants can do that. They can kill your appetite completely to the point where you don't even feel yourself. The only sign that I get that my blood sugar is low is I get dizzy. Like, I don't get the stomach rumbling, hunger, any of those signals whatsoever. I get dizzy when I need to eat. So, like, I can go the entire day without eating because I don't even know that I need to.
Okay. Yeah, see, different, like, people, everybody's different. Yeah, everyone's different. But yeah, I don't know. Also, I have family members that are, like, obsessed with, like, talking about dieting, and it, like, makes me so mad. Like, I just have to walk away because I'm just so tired of hearing about it. Like, I can't. It, like, puts me in such, like, stress. They have, like, no idea. It makes me so mad.
Yeah, it's one of the things I heard most when my dad was here over the holidays was how much weight I've gained since the last time he's seen me, which would have been last Christmas because he lives in North Carolina. We see him like once a year, so yeah, that's all I heard, and I'm like, Dad, damn it, I'm like super self-conscious about this right now. Could we not talk about my belly? But it's all I heard. It's all I heard the whole time.
I had a great aunt who did that.
I ain't mad at you, Dad.
Every single Christmas. Every single Christmas. We're talking about how much weight I gained and how she couldn't get me a shirt and she could get my sister a shirt because my sister was skinny. And why wasn't I skinny like my sister? Nope. I couldn't. I couldn't handle it anymore.
Well, and like I wanted to address something, and again, I want to be very careful talking about this because, as I mentioned, on the one hand, I think movements like Health of Every Size are absolutely necessary because I think that I think the cultural bias against folks that look like you and me, Tasha, basically, is absolutely fucking awful, and nobody should have to deal with it. On the other hand, I've also seen people who get a bit crazed with it. And when I mention something like, hey, I'm on Weight Watchers under the supervision of a doctor, I'll get shamed for that. Oh, that's anti-feminist. Oh, you shouldn't be talking about trying to lose weight, etc. And it's like, okay, well, it's one thing if you personally talk to me and say, you don't want to hear that I'm doing that. You don't want to hear about my progress. Okay, fine. I'll respect your boundaries. If I'm talking about it in a public space, you can go fuck yourself. Like, you can walk away from the conversation.
Yeah. No, I've had people be like that towards me too. Like a close friend, she was just like, well, I'm just going to rock being big. But if you want to lose weight, like why? And I'm just like, okay, but I'm talking about me, not you. Like, I'm not trying to upset you. Like, I want to lose weight because I want to do it for myself. Like, I don't care about anything else. Yeah. It's weird how like the backlash can happen. I don't know. That's why I've stopped talking about it. Cause I think the people who are body positive, like they're all for it. But then when you talk about losing weight, then like you're an asshole. Then you're like the elitist skinny people. And like, I'm not trying to be like that. Definitely not. So
I'm actually going to interrupt really quickly. We just got a super chat from Buck Melanoma. For me, sugar cravings are so much worse than anything. So $2 super chat. Thank you so much. Buck, also welcome to the chat, Utah Outcasts. Thank you so much for dropping in.
Yeah, what up, X? Yeah, I get sugar cravings because I don't eat much sweets.
Neither do I.
I'm a carnivore. I like meat. I'm a bad lefty. But to me, meat is the shit. But every once in a while, I will get these like weird sugar cravings. I can't stand it, and I will just eat like chocolate and stuff that I just don't normally eat on a regular basis at all. And I'll just stuff my face until I'm stuffed, and I'm like, why did I just do that? Like I get these really weird sugar cravings that I've never really understood why I get them.
Well, I mean, it might be worth looking into it with a counselor, but I find that a lot of the time, if I don't know why I'm eating, it's probably because I'm stressed or feeling some kind of negative emotion that I don't know how to deal with. Like, sometimes I've managed to block it off to the point where I don't notice it at all. Actually, you guys have talked to my boarder. We all played games with him last night.
Beer equals sweets, yo.
He and I got into an argument a while back, and I was bringing some snacks into my room because I was watching a movie. But he came up the stairs halfway while I was bringing the snacks in, and I wasn't going to touch them until my alarm went off. I was just bringing them in because I was watching a movie, so I didn't want to have to pause the movie, go out and get my snack when the alarm went off. I had resolved myself not to touch them, but when he started talking to me and we got into this argument, sort of at the stairs, without even realizing it, I popped the bloody bag, one of the 2 bags of snacks that I had in my hands, and I ate it, like without even realizing that's what I was doing. And so I walked in and noticed that one of them had been eaten. And I was like, oh my God, like in real time, because I had this food in my hand, I used it to numb out those feelings because I knew I couldn't call him out on it, or bad things would have happened. And it's like, it can be that subconscious. Like, you can not even realize that that's what you're doing. It's sometimes, like, I found that I've had to dig into my journal quite often to sort of stop myself from eating, or if I catch myself starting a binge or something like that, midway through, if I catch myself doing it, all right, I'm going to finish what I'm eating right now, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to pop open my journals and I'm going to put my thoughts in there and try to figure out what the fuck is going on. What just happened? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I avoiding? Is there anything I can do about it? Or is this just, I need to get it out? You know, and a lot of the time that's what it is for me, at least. It might be different for you.
Yeah, for me, so what I've been doing lately is like I'm trying to do more like non-food item activities. Like I'm starting to paint. I want to like go and hang out with friends. So I'm trying to like replace my boredom, because like sometimes I'll eat because I'm bored. Like it's not even that I'm stressed or I'm mad. I'm like, oh, I'm watching a movie. Oh, well, like let's get a snack. And I'm like, no. So now I'm trying to like do other stuff with my hands instead of just like eating. I don't know if that makes sense. So
yeah, that makes sense. And Buck Melanoma, you're correct. CBT is the treatment program that I'm going through for my eating disorder, and that is where I picked up some of those habits from. But yeah, like that actually, boredom eating, my counselor calls it stim eating. Basically, you're eating to stimulate yourself until you can get to the next thing.
Yeah. That's the word I'm looking for. Yep. And like that is actually, and it's starting to work for me, where I'm like doing more, I don't know, just like enjoying life more, not just like constantly eating. Cause like for me, I don't think I should just be eating all the time. So I'm trying to like do more activities. So yeah.
Yeah, that's when I talked earlier, when I said, you know, food isn't the most exciting thing in my life anymore. Like, that's part of what I was talking about. I picked up the electric guitar again recently, so I've been doing that when I get bored. I've been giving myself more leeway to work on personal projects in addition to the novel that I need to get out by March. So I've been doing a lot more short stories and stuff, letting my creativity come out more. Since I just got promoted to co-host, I've also been working on the new series of YouTube videos. We finally gave it a name. It's going to be called Film Crusade. But I've been working on that also in my spare time, just because I actually find it very creative, really rewarding, even though it's work.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
She's got Allie's gonna actually be doing the editing for that series, so she's gonna dip her hands into that whole world of YouTube, and I'm wondering if it'll be as addictive for her as it has been for me. Real quick, we got a $5 super chat from Will Kincaid, or he says, I was gonna call him Baby Manatee and then stopped myself and then proceeded to call him Baby Manatee. So I'm lactose intolerant, but I'm addicted to Battenkill Valley chocolate milk. My wife doesn't appreciate the dairy farts very much. So leave it to Will.
Oh man. Oh, that's funny.
Another response to Buck Melanoma, simple does not always mean easy. That is another thing that my counselor has often said. And you're right, like CBT is relatively simple, but it is hard work and it requires a lot of mindfulness. I found that I've also picked up, like, meditation I've been doing off and on my entire life, but I've found that the skills that I've gained from meditation have been very key to this. And so, having ADHD on top of it, first off, it makes you more likely to have an eating disorder, particularly if you were, assigned female at birth. But on top of that, it makes it a lot more difficult to control those impulses, even when you're medicated. And so that kind of adds a whole extra layer on top of it. But it has been rewarding, and actually there was kind of a big event today. My counselor changed my status from moderate risk to low risk / remission for the first time ever after a meeting today. I've been seeing her since June, so that was a really big deal.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think, like, with all of these conversations we've had so far, especially the self-harm stream, I think this is right there with it. That a lot of times with the more severe eating disorders, that I think counseling would be the most recommendable source, especially like severe bulimia, like my friend had growing up. Um, I don't think she ever got counseling for it, and I just wish that she had. So I do want to put that out, that with these conversations, that they are more heavily moderated. So far, I think our chat's been pretty wonderful.
I think we tossed a racist, but that was it.
Yeah, that was about it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I love my mod team. They're fantastic.
Yeah, we have a good one now, and I think we're all on the same page, and it seems to be like I was saying, like, because I was commenting like, hey guys, let's not time this, just time, but then there was backstory involved, and the person had come into the Discord server saying a very racist word and was harassing mods and stuff. So yeah, I mean it's like we're on the same page. Like, yeah, you just don't worry about it, Naka. We'll tell you about it later. And yeah. So I'm pretty happy with the way things have been going, especially in these conversations where we put the call out that it needs to be more heavily moderated. They're always right there for us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So is there any particular thing that you would like to, like, as far as a message you'd like to give the audience, or a particular incident you'd like to share? Is there anything else you'd like to share, Lady Tasha?
Yeah. I would say this is my message. Don't, like, forgive yourself, and also, like, take care of your body. Like, it's the only one you're gonna get. Like, love your body. Love your body right now. Don't love it when you lose weight, not lose weight. Like, just love your body and, like, love yourself. Self-care.
Or at least accept it if you can't get to love yet. Because some of us can't get to love yet, but just like, this is the way it is, and it's going to take time for it to become something else, and I need to be okay with the way it is right now. Like, acceptance. If you can't get to love, even just getting to acceptance is a huge fucking step. And that was another thing my counselor helped me see.
Yeah. That's very, very true. And I think that's like what I'm accepting now. And I had a few hours ago got off the phone with my advocate that I've had for like a few years now, like accepting the things that have happened to me. And like, now I'm like in a good headspace mentally. So like, yeah, I don't know. I've come to accept my body. I've come to be more like confident, and like, I'm much happier now than I've ever been, despite all the shit that's happened. Knock knows a little bit about it, but like, I haven't even touched the surface. But that's why I'm in therapy too, to like really dive in and like figure out what the fuck went wrong. So yeah, just love yourself, and also accept yourself. Don't hate yourself. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's really good to have you back on, Tasha. It's been too long, and I'm glad things are getting better for you. I really am. It makes me happy.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for letting me, share my thoughts. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. Like, I'm actually really glad that you came back, because I know that everything that fell out was really, really traumatizing and stressful. And so I'm so glad that you came back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for letting me be on the chat. It means a lot to me.
Well, I mean, you've got a wrench, so as long as you, as long as you follow the rules and everything else with that, like, we're more than happy to have you.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, no problem, Tasha.
All right, I'm gonna hop off now.
All right, no problem. Thank you again for coming. All right, so Nuck, do you want to share your story first, or would you like me to share mine?
I can share mine first. Mine's gonna be short. It's not too much to talk about. I'm just gonna fix this a little bit. We'll do that. I think will work. That'll be good for now. Mine is really it's just something that it's just how I've always been, and it stems from my mother not forcing me to eat things that I didn't want to eat as a child. She spoiled me. She went the opposite direction with my brother and made him eat everything. So that dude eats literally every food known to man. But I don't. I've always been very selective. As I said, I'm a mainly a carnivore. I eat mostly meat. That's pretty much all I eat. Like it's probably like 85% of my diet, and I eat hardly any vegetables at all.
So what you're saying is you were best friends with Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, no, fuck that guy. But,
I'm sorry, I just had to poke fun of you. But
yeah,
keep in mind, I've been
I'm-
teasing Nock for this forever.
I'm more of a David Worley type meat eater. So, but the problem is.
So what you're saying is that all of your health issues didn't disappear overnight as soon as you like eschewed the entire plant kingdom from your diet, right?
Yeah,
Like you
exactly.
didn't become a superstar when that happened.
No.
Wait, damn it, Peterson! You lied to all of us.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. It probably I won't even say that stupid comment, but the problem is though that it's a psychological thing with me. I can't eat vegetables. Now I can eat corn and I can eat green beans. I eat lettuce, but it literally has no taste to me. Like it would like I would equate it to eating like a really thin paper. I don't enjoy it.
Supposedly, if you stop smoking, you'll get some of your taste buds back.
Maybe, but it's just I've never eaten this stuff. Like I've never tried a raw tomato. I obsessively pick out any like if my stepmother's Southern, right? So she wasn't the type of my mother was the type of person to make separate shit for me, and every once in a while my stepmother would, but I ended up just picking out a lot of shit throughout my entire life. They would pick on me at the table for it. Sorry, I'm too close to the microphone, but they would pick on me for it. But I would literally spend 20, 30 minutes picking out every little thing that was in whatever dish I was given that I didn't want to eat. And it's a lot of it's a texture thing, a lot of it, but most of it's just psychological. I cannot eat this stuff. It's led to breakups with girlfriends, serious relationships that food became a serious issue. A lot of my liberal girlfriends went farther left liberal and wanted to become vegetarians, and I'm like, you're not taking meat out of my diet. Shit like that. And it's been something that I've struggled with, and now that I'm 42 years old, I've got my daughter's 10. I have all continuing health problems. You think about it, and it's just it adds just one more element of difficult to the whole situation. And I'm gonna really try to force myself to start eating some of this shit, but it psychologically is terrifying for me. I won't even go near it. Thankfully, my daughter eats a lot more vegetables than I do, but I can't even get near them. And that's pretty much my food issues. I know we talked a little bit about it, and you said it's not quite an eating disorder, but it's
It sounds
something.
like Urfid, honestly.
Yeah, but it's just something I'll never, I've struggled with it my whole life, and outside of corn and green beans, and I don't even really like green beans. I can just eat them. I don't like none of that shit.
So for those of you who know me, I'm ovo-vegetarian because I'm severely allergic to mammal meat, and I have a secondary reaction to poultry. The only meat that I gave up for ethical reasons is fish, because overfishing and the fact that I come from a fishing tribe. But my eating disorder story is long and complicated. Like many people growing up, food was the enemy and food was love. But not from my parents, funnily enough. So my stepfather was a chef, like an actual trained, like worked in restaurants chef. He wasn't, the most amazing chef in the world, but I grew up with higher quality food than average. But a lot of the time after my sister got to a certain age, I wasn't really allowed to eat it. So there was that. But my grandmother, who I would go and, this is my mother's mother, not my father's mother, the one that sort of raised me in Britain up until a certain age. I'd go out to stay with her and my aunt every summer, and she would make the most delightful things and have me help her cook in the kitchen. We'd make everything from breads to cinnamon rolls to, this delightfully, white trash dish called pink macaroni, which was effectively like ramen and spices, tomato sauce, cheese, and heavy cream. And it was fucking delicious. Like, you don't know how delicious it is until I've made it for you. But, we would eat like this smorgasbord of things, and whenever I was upset, she would give those things to me, and then I'd come home and my parents would starve me. My mom put me on my first diet when I was 9 years old. I told this story a little bit to Knock and a little bit during the self-harm stream, but I said I'd get more into it during this one. I called it the Faith Diet. I don't remember the name of the book. I remember the cover, but the idea was that there's a God-shaped hole in your soul and you're trying to stuff it with food. And so the diet had you pray for breakfast and lunch and eat a light salad for dinner. And the idea was, well, you've got all this stored on your body, so you'll take breakfast off of one hip and lunch off the other. And that is a line that my eating disorder uses on me to this day. For those who aren't familiar, when I say my eating disorder does this, one of the parts of my therapy is personifying it as its own sort of voice so that I see it as outside thoughts rather than a part of who I am. Like, that's part of it. So if you guys hear me say my eating disorder does this, like, I'm not schizophrenic and I don't have DID. It's part of my therapy to think of it that way. So hello, I'm Kennedy. So here's where it gets interesting, though, because I've had this allergy my whole life. It's gotten worse over the years. I also have a very mild allergy to casein, the protein found in dairy. That was worse for a while, and then it got better after I got my celiac treated. Nobody really knows why that is. So I'm just not reacting as severely, so I can kind of, it's almost like having lactose intolerance now rather than like full-blown anaphylactic shock the way that meat is. But my mother decided to become an Atkins devotee when I was 12. And so she would actually hit me and yell at me if I ate food that wasn't Atkins approved while at other people's houses. So like I would go to a friend's place and spend the night, and if I ate dinner with them and it wasn't Atkins approved and I didn't just pick out the food that was, I would get in trouble when I got home. There was one particular incident where, I was sick all the time from eating basically nothing but the things I was allergic to, meat and milk, and sometimes like steamed broccoli or a pile of peas and corn weren't even allowed. So it'd be like steamed broccoli or a pile of like carrots, with nothing on them. Breakfast was always, I hate scrambled eggs now because of this, but it was always every single day scrambled eggs, like with cheese piled on top of it and like big strips of bacon. And I've always had problems digesting fats too. I've got biliary dyskinesia. My gallbladder doesn't empty properly. Like, it's very slow and it gets stuck. And so like this was dieting hell, and I was sick all the time and I was hungry all the time. The only time that I could get away from that was they weren't able to pack me lunches or anything. And so like they just trusted me that I'd eat Atkins stuff at school, because I'd go and buy my lunch at school in high school. So needless to say, I never really developed a healthy relationship with food. Food was either love or it was the enemy. And because of how sick I was, I stayed very skinny for a long time. And then something happened and my thyroid started shutting down. Something triggered my Hashimoto's, or whatever the fuck it is, it's killing it off. They think it might be Hashimoto's, but they found the antibodies, but they can't find the gene. So there's stuff with that. But then I ballooned. I gained over 150 pounds over the course of about 2 years. I lost some of it from binging and purging and stuff through the end of high school and the beginning of college. I then began to gain more. I topped out at 320 after the stint where we were trying to figure out what had caused me to have food poisoning effectively for a month straight. And I got my, then at that point diagnosed, but I thought it was in remission. Eating disorder triggered by a gastroenterologist that tried to pressure me into gastric bypass surgery for an hour instead of actually listening to my symptoms. He called me a liar outright when I tried to explain that I'd been sick for an entire month straight. So I ended up, after I got diagnosed with celiacs, I got back on Weight Watchers. I had started it for about a month, and then I got this whole illness, and it was several months recovering from the anemia and other things. Binging and purging was going on during this time too, but it was very hard to eat anything before I got diagnosed, because it was just, you're shocked by how many things have wheat in them. I'll put it that way. So after I ended up getting back on Weight Watchers for a bit, I lost some more of the weight, but then the binge purge cycles got worse, and I ended up seeking treatment. And so since the end of June, I've been in treatment. I've been doing cognitive behavioral therapy, and she's been monitoring me. She allowed me to get back on Weight Watchers, and she's been monitoring me on that, and it's been working fairly well for me. But I'd say that the thoughts aren't gone. I just know how to deal with them. Like when they turn up, they're sort of like a canary in the coal mine. If anybody here is familiar with that term, basically old school coal miners. There's before we had meters and stuff to detect gas, the sort of invisible gases that can poison you. They would put these canaries in cages. And they'd keep the cages relatively low to the ground. And if a canary died, then they know that the miners were in danger. They'd pull everybody out of the mine. And eating disorder thoughts have sort of become like that. There have been a few times where I've still given into them, even within the last couple months. Knock and I talk every day. He knows all about that. He gets to hear about it, whether he likes it or not.
True story. But I usually don't mind. She's like pretty much the only one that can break through my obsessive tendencies to work and never stop. So.
Yeah, like I also drag you out of your hole every so often. Knock, you're gonna go get a joint and we're gonna talk for an hour. No, I'm not. Yes, you were. Like I'm gonna be demanding. Okay, fine. Yeah, but happens. Only an hour. 3 hours later.
This happens.
This has literally happened. Like I'll be like, I'm gonna be demanding. You're gonna do this for me. Then like, because every so often I have to remind him, like, if we're gonna be friends, like we actually have to be friends. That requires doing things other than just like talking when we're on stream.
It's hard to get me out of my thing I do, which is be obsessed about shit. I'm very routine and patterned, so it's hard to get me out of that. You and John should be having a stream at some point this week, if not definitely next week. But yeah, you two are able to talk to me consistently, more than my family.
Well, I mean, I've also got the benefit of we're working on a project together that requires some pretty intense collaboration, so I can be like, by the way, I'm going to hijack this portion of this conversation for personal shit, and we haven't talked about the business yet, so you're stuck here.
Yeah, it's been a nice break, actually, the last few days. I haven't been making edited content. I'm going to get back to that soon, so Patreon will get active. I want to roll out the new Patreon benefit package on Sunday. So, yeah, I'll be working on that. But I think maybe next week sometime I'll start pumping out some edited videos again.
So, to sort of wrap up the story, I wouldn't say I'm out of my eating disorder, but I will say that a year ago, my entire life was basically a binge bender with obsessive hours and hours of exercise, purging in between. And even when Knock and I met, I was starting to get back into that. I was just beginning treatment. And, my counselor pointed out today that I said some things to her that a year, like 6 months ago, she wished that she had recordings of our first meeting, because like the me back then would have never even conceived of some of the things that I said to her now. And so my message here is similar to the one at the end of the self-harm stream. And that is, no matter what stage you are in your eating disorder journey, and it is a journey, trust me, you've got your entire life to deal with it or not, and it's your choice. There is hope. There is treatment. And if you put in the work, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I can't tell you whether it'll ever go away or not, but what I can tell you is that what once was an urge that just happened kind of subconsciously, and then I blamed myself and hated myself and beat myself up. And again, not got to hear all of this when we first got to know each other. I was a bit neurotic, or at least I looked that way. I probably was, to be honest. What started off as that has become, I want to do this, so something must be wrong. It's become that canary in the coal mine. It no longer feels normal. And when you get to the point where it doesn't feel normal anymore, well, first off, you've made a lot of progress. But second, like, that's a huge deal. Like, at that point, you were out of that cycle, at the very least on the action side, and now you're learning and using tools to be healthier. And you can get there. Like, it might not be CBT for you. There's a lot of different eating disorder treatments. Some people respond well to certain medications because their eating disorders are driven by physiological factors. Some people, they're anxiety driven. They need treatment for that. Some people respond well to, CBT. Some people need EMDR, eye movement direction and reassignment. I don't remember. It's eye movement something. But because it's PTSD driven, like Lady Tasha talked about, there's a lot of different ways in which you can get treatment, but it is possible to get better. It is possible to go from, completely being consumed by an eating disorder to it's livable and manageable. I can't say that there's a way to cure it or to make it go away forever, but it can get to the point where it's no longer your day-to-day life. And I would say that I'm 1,000 times better than I was even 6 months ago. So there's hope if you go and you get treatment. There's hope if you get a diagnosis. And there's support. When I've spoken openly about my eating disorder in multiple Discord servers, it's surprising how many people have come out of the woodwork and talked to me about theirs. There's several people in our Discord who have DM'd me talking about their issues, talking about friends and family that have it. It's so much more prevalent than anyone realizes. So, no, it's not something to be ashamed of. And it's worth it to try to get help.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I was just typing that we were closing out for the night. But I think this will be something that we will revisit. I did see a good suggestion in the chat for the next one of these, but of course I can't remember it now. Abuse. I think that would be something to think about.
Yeah, that might be a heavy stream. That's going to be an all hands on deck stream if we do decide to do that.
Yeah, so we'll think about that. But I think that this was really good and really insightful. And I want to commend everybody that's come on to share their story tonight. And I think we will revisit this again. And if anybody is interested in continuing this particular conversation, reach out. I saw that Buck wanted to jump in. So maybe if we can get a few more, maybe 2 or 3 more people that would be willing to come on and have this to extend this conversation, I think I would like to do that. So yeah, we could do this one again as well sometime.
Well, thank you again, Nock, for having this one. This one was actually your idea. It was stemmed off of something that happened during the after party for your coming out, your coming out atheist / deconversion stream on Neil's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's something that I've always kind of wanted to explore more. Like I said, I had a childhood friend that was very similar to Will's story tonight, and I also had a childhood friend that was a severe bulimic. And
keep in mind, I did the throwing up purging thing, like what you were talking about with your friends, because I've heard that story about her, and I was like that when I was a teenager as well.
Yeah,
bulimia is no joke, guys. It's really no joke.
So this is definitely a topic that I'm interested in, and that I want to learn more about. And maybe I don't want to call out any names, but maybe I can really reach out to a couple people that know the topic well and would be willing to come on and talk about it as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be an interesting one to have Shannon Q on, because it's a topic that she's talked about on her channel a few times.
Yeah, I think that could be a good idea. Maybe if we do decide to do this one again, I could reach out and at least ask, and if we put it at a far enough date, I'm sure.
I think it'd be worth having a panel stream on it and a sharing stream. I think we should probably do those separately, though.
Yeah. We can approach this in a couple different ways. Like I said, 2020 is going to be a big year. This conversation was really, really good, really insightful, and the conversation is only going to get better. Do you have anything going on over at Sticks and Stonehenge before we get out of here for the night?
Well, we're going to be resuming our streaming schedule next week. It's just the holiday season and stuff. We had to put it on hold for a bit. Now that I've got the new computer all set up, the OS was not installed yet. That's the reason I'm not on camera, but I will be on Sunday, hopefully, if my new camera comes in. So I just got a new computer set up to do editing and video rendering and such for this channel and for SNS. We're hopefully going to be putting out edited content fairly soon. Callan and I have been working on a response to the gentleman that you and I are supposed to be taking down. You know, the person who is defending the use of Nazi symbols. She and I are going to be taking a look at his, I hesitate to call it, theology because it's not very coherent, but we're going to take a look at his group's theology, and then you and I are going to take a look at his very poor arguments for using the black sun.
Yeah, we can lump that into like maybe the filming session for our first video on the Star Wars Christian link. What we decided what we were going to call that, right?
Yeah, we have decided to call it Film Crusade. Like that's the name of the series. We're not just doing Star Wars, but Star Wars is going to be the first series that we tackle, and we're probably going to do a lot of other movies in between lots of Star Wars episodes, because just watching A New Hope, when I was doing some research and doing some clipping last night, it is insane just how much just how heavy the Christian influence is on this series. Like, I'm not even talking about cherry picking. I'm talking about outright blatant Christian imagery. Like, if you grew up in a fundamentalist home, you're going to pick it up over and over. It's insane.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of videos, and would be fairly easy to throw a movie here and there that we cover quickly to kind of change up the flavor. But we got a lot of ideas for this year. I'm going to be working with the page sometime soon, getting that ready for 2020, giving it a different feel, different look. We're going to be doing these really, really heavy conversation streams, open rooms for people to share their stories on heavy topics once a month. And we're going to be scheduling... I'm going to really start working on trying to schedule some people for for interviews with me and Ali. That'll be once a month, and then our next open room will be in the next week or two, probably.
Yeah, our next just sort of dumpster fire open room, anybody's welcome to talk about anything, will be probably next week. We're probably going to do the interview closer to the end of the month to give us time to find a guest and a topic that they're suitably interested in.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to be trying to actually schedule things. I'm working on getting a calendar together. We're going to try to get one going for patrons as well, so you guys can kind of see ahead of time and make sure that you guys can get in. So for everybody that missed it, by the way, any patrons we've got in the chat who weren't here for the New Year stream, all of the patrons who signed up before Knock woke up yesterday are going to be getting a special t-shirt that on the front is going to say, "I'm a raging patron," and on the back is going to say, "In the beginning there was rage," and we're both going to sign it. This is only going out to the patrons. We're never going to make it again. So for those of you who have been patrons, since the beginning, so to speak, prior to a Patreon rollout, you guys are getting a special reward for being such amazing, amazing people and for backing the stream and for helping Knock out. We're also going to be rolling out a merch store fairly soon because people have been demanding it. Hail Priapus is going to be a shirt. Same as Yours is going to be a shirt. We've got a couple of other designs that we're working on. But that's going to be coming pretty soon. And as far as the Patreon rewards roll out, we can announce at least a few of those things. The new Film Crusade group, we're going to have a drawing of the top tier patrons, the Knocks and the Ragers. We're going to be drawing out of a hat once a month, and one of you guys is going to get to pick a movie. And if we think that we can, possibly cover it, if we think there's enough Christian stuff there. And keep in mind, the rule is that it has to be a not explicitly Christian film. So don't send us, don't go send us after some Christmas movie or something.
Yeah, we don't want God is Dead.
Secular. We don't want God is Dead.
Do God is Dead.
We're looking at particularly things like sci-fi, fantasy, horror, etc. But even, like if there's a thriller movie that has some pretty excessive Christian themes in it, that isn't explicitly Christian, that we're going to be doing a drawing, and once a month you guys are going to get to pick one for us to do. We're also going to do once every other month, you guys will be able to suggest a video for Knock to respond to, and if he feels like he's got something to say about it, then he'll do that as well for his response videos. So the top tier patrons are getting some extra rewards. All of you guys are going to get to see, the videos and stuff ahead of time. Even the $1 patrons get to see them in advance of everyone else. I'm working on getting Nock to unlock the comment section so you guys can comment and stuff before anybody else does too, because that's one of the big rewards on other platforms. So yeah, we're working on a big sort of overhaul of everything. We're going to start updating Patreon pretty soon. Nock is paying more attention to it. If you send him DMs there, you're going to get a response a lot faster.
Yeah, I've got like 13 that I haven't seen yet because I hardly ever look at Patreon, but I'm going to try to respond to all of those. And yeah, I'm going to be on it a lot more.
And the other big thing is we're going to be working on I'm working on a bot for Patreon for Discord. We're going to have a special patrons only area where we're going to give sneak peeks and ask for feedback and things like that. So yeah, that's going to be a big thing for patrons as well. These rollouts and things are going to be coming over time. Now, as far as the t-shirts, we're warning everybody, we're going to try to get them out by April or May. We need to get a little bit of money together, and we also need to both be able to sign it, and we live across the country from each other. So what will probably happen is I'm probably going to order them, sign all of them, and then ship them over to Nock, or if we can get the design done before I go out to Michigan, we're going to sign them when we meet up. Yeah. So it's going to be a bit before we're going to have enough money to ship them for everyone, because even though we're getting a bit every month, Nock needs it to pay his bills. So it's going to be a bit of time, but we are going to get that stuff out for you guys. It is a promise.
Yeah, and I'm going to be rolling out an initial Patreon package on Sunday or Monday. And then we will be adding to it as we proceed. I do want to say, like, once we get this Patreon gift done, I'm not sure what it would be, but I would like to do something similar for our mod team. My moderator team has been just absolutely excellent, and we have really, I think, over the course of the last couple months, gotten pretty good at what we're trying to do here on the channel and where we're trying to take it. Tony has been doing excellent work across all the different Discord platforms, shilling and in live chats, shilling. So I'm really happy with our moderator team, and once we get this Patreon gift done, I'd like to do something for the moderators. I'm just not sure what. And that's first that Allie's hearing about that. But that's just something that I have been thinking about today that I would like to do after that is done.
One final thing about the Patreon t-shirts, by the way, in the exclusive Patreon area, we're going to be encouraging people, if you are comfortable, and you can let us know if you don't want your username displayed with the selfie. If you're comfortable taking a selfie with your new t-shirt on, we will, after they get shipped out, we'll start posting those at the beginning of streams, any new ones that we get from the 16 patrons that we had when he woke up. On New Year's. So if you're comfortable with your image being out there, we won't have to tag you with your username on there if you don't want to. But for those of you who want to take selfies with that, we will post them at the beginning of the streams, and you guys will get to kind of see the patrons and see what you got to miss out on, because I pushed that for 2 bloody weeks, guys. So if you have the ability to sign up and you didn't, well, you missed out.
Yeah, and I do think it's a good thing. So, who knows, maybe next year we'll do something as well, but I do think that it's a good idea, and it's a good show of appreciation, and we have a lot of good ideas going into 2020. You guys will see them as they roll out. Of course, you're still going to get response videos. I know a lot of people have wanted me to get back at Girl Defined. It's what I really grew the channel on at first, and I'm gonna do that stuff still, but there is going to be an elevation this year, and we are going to be tackling more sophisticated topics, and especially these live streams. Like I'm itching to get that open real room feel back, but at the same time, like conversations like we had tonight, I think they're so important, and I'm just really looking forward to what we're going to do this year and moving forward into the future, because this is something that it's what I do now. It's if I have time for it, I'm gonna do it, and I'm grateful that Allie and John are both here, and we're gonna do this thing. And I'm grateful to all of you guys in the chat. But with that, I think we are gonna get out of here. Allie, it's been over 2 hours now. Good episode. One last thing. I'm really unhappy with the real quick intro that I put together for this show. Something will be coming better until we get our final thing, which should be coming, which hopefully will be in the next month or so. But I'm gonna actually spend time and make a real introduction for these Seeing Red shows, and I think Allie's gonna be working on some artwork as well. So it's gonna be it's gonna get better as we move along, of course. So, all right, I am going to get us out of here. So, as always, be the conversation, and we will see you soon.